This is amazing. So from hero, that a child that has been anointed by God to be king, and then employed by the king to be the musician, to be the entertainer, now the king wants to kill him. Now the kings want to kill him. And if you read carefully, there were at least 5 times, more than 5 times, King Saul tried to kill David. And what I've just read in chapter 19 here is one of those account where just as David struck the Philistine, King Saul wanna struck David down, to pin him, to struck him through the wall with his spears. I'm not sure whether you realize this, but all of us, whether rich or poor, all of us need friends in our life. Not a single person, whether you're introvert or extrovert, who can live in this life and flourish without a friend. God created us that way. God created you and me to be someone who needed another person in their life, or people in their life, called friends. Tonight we'll be looking at specifically at the amazing friendship between Saul's son, King Saul's son, named Jonathan, and David, the beloved king of Israel. He's not king yet. He is anointed to be king at this stage. The friendship between Jonathan and David is like no other, even in the Bible. It's beautiful. If you read it and study it carefully, that's why I want you to read chapter 18, 19, and 20 as we continue on our series tonight. And you read that at home. I hope you have a feeling that, man, it will be awesome. It will be beautiful if I have a friend like Jonathan. And my prayer is not only that we have a friend like Jonathan tonight, that we can be a friend like Jonathan. So we all need friends in our life, in this life, if we want to flourish. So I'm going to look at 3 things tonight in regards to friendship. Why do we need a friend? Why you and I need a friend? What is a friend? What does it mean to be a friend? And finally, how to be one. Why do we need one? What is a friend? And how to be one. How to be a friend. Okay? So why do we need a friend? Well, first, I think it's the simplest one is because God created us this way. God created us to be social beings that need one another. We cannot live without other people in our life. We just can't. That's how God created us. From the very first man, the very first human being that God created, Adam, in the Garden of Eden. God created Adam to need a friend. And who's Adam's first friend? God himself. God and Adam were friends in the garden until the fall, and that friendship between God and man were broken. So God created us that way. That's why we need a friend in our life. And in this story, in chapter 18 to 20, we see how David, in this case, David needs Jonathan, need a friend like Jonathan. Without Jonathan, if not for Jonathan, David would have been killed by Saul. I can't go through all of it, but if you read chapter 18 to 20, you will see how much Jonathan helped David to escape. Saul's persistent. He kept wanting to kill David, but Jonathan again and again helped David. So David needs a friend in Jonathan in this part of our story where we get to in 1 Samuel. So ever since David's defeated Goliath, there's this envy in Saul. There's this envy in Saul. Let's read from chapter 18. Now we go back 1 chapter. What I just read to you before was chapter 19. Now go back 1 chapter, chapter 18. I'm going to read to you from verse 6 to 11. So as they were coming home, when David returned, so this coming on from, from the war, when David returned from striking down the Philistine, the Israelites women, came out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing. They were celebrating, you see, to meet King Saul because the king is in the war, with tambourines and with songs of joy and with musical instruments. And the women sang to one another as they celebrated. Listen to the song. This is interesting. They sing this way. Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. There's no mistaken here who's being elevated, who's being lifted up. It's not Saul. Saul's there so that David can be lifted up. It's like, this is Hebrew poetry. Saul struck 1,000, David struck 10,000. So this parallel is characteristic of Hebrew poetry. So the reason Saul is in the song is to lift up David, to make David looks good and looks better. You know what I mean? Like if you're single, let me tell you a secret. This has been proven by psychologists and researchers. If you're single and you're not so good looking and looking for someone to date, right? And you hang out with friends, invite a friend who is worse looking than you, and you'll suddenly become good looking. Researchers has proven that. No matter how ugly you are, if you want to look attractive, invite someone who is uglier than you, and suddenly you become handsome or beautiful. So that's a trick. So if you get invited by someone, like another guy or another woman, so just bear in mind they might be using you. Okay? So in this case, Saul was being used. Saul was being used by the women who sing this song to lift up David. To lift David up. And let me continue reading this. And Saul was very angry, and this saying displeased him. Obviously, right? He said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed 1,000 or thousands. And what more can he have but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day on. From that day on, he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to kill David. And the next day, a harmful spirit, his trouble, his envy towards David, from God rushed upon Saul, and he raved within his house, while David was playing the lyre. And as he did day by day, Saul had his spear in his hand, waiting for the right moment, you see. And Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall. But David evaded him twice. What did he say? He said, I will pin David to the wall. The word pin here is the same word as struck that the woman sang. How did the woman sing? The woman sing, Saul has struck down his 1,000, David struck down his 10,000. It's the same word. And then and basically Saul says, he continue on singing, saying, just as the woman sing that David has struck down 10,000, I will struck David down through my spear, with my spear. And if I said before, this is not the first time, and the passage tells us twice. If you read on, you will see at least 5 times Saul tried to kill David. David is in trouble in his life at this time of his life. David's life is in serious danger. It's not just anyone out there to kill him. It's the king. The king, his king, is out there looking for the right opportunity to kill him. I don't know about you, but I've never been in a situation where somebody tried to kill me. But can you imagine if you haven't, like me, then just imagine with me. Imagine someone's out there is trying to kill you. And you understand that, and you heard that message loud and clear. You know your life is in trouble. And that's what the state that David is in. His own king is trying to kill him, and he knows it. What does he need in this time, at this stage, at this moment of his life? He needs one thing. He needs a friend to go through this problem that he has. And he found it, if you read chapter 18, 1 Samuel 18 to 20, and David found that friend in Jonathan. So why do we need a friend? The first one is, well, God created us this way to be social creature that need one another. Even Adam need a friend in the Garden of Eden. The second thing is because just like David, we will all face troubles in life. You don't have to live long enough to face problems in your life. I look at my 3 kids. The youngest is 3.5 years old, Talitha. Even Talitha has faced problem in her life. Recently, when I enrolled her to a swimming lesson, she faced problem, right? She has to duck her head under the water and count 3 to 3. She's scared of that, right? And as you grow up, your problems, things that scare you, is more and it's greater and it's more serious than having to duck your head underwater for 3 seconds. So the longer you live, the more troubles that you will face in life. And that is the second reason why we need a friend, because like David, we will all face problems and troubles in our life. So I'm trying to make a case here that all of us need a friend in our life, just like David needed Jonathan in his life. If you have never faced, in the odd scenario that, you've been living in a bubble, your parents has been so good to you that you never face problems in your life. In the odd case, in the unique case, that you have never faced problem before, I can assure you that you will face problem in your life. Say you have faced problems in your life, but you haven't faced serious problems in your life because you grew up in a good family. Your parents has been looking after you really well. You never faced any serious problem in your life. Let me assure you, that won't last very long. You will one day face serious troubles in your life. Whether you're rich or poor, Christian or not, you will face troubles in life, serious troubles in life. And when you are facing troubles in life, you will need a friend. Not just any friend, you will need a friend like Jonathan. See, do you realize that we today we're living in an individualistic society, especially in Melbourne, Sydney, Melbourne, Australia. We don't care much about our neighbors. We care about ourselves. And I'm sure some parts of some pockets of little suburb perhaps are not like that, but I'm talking about majority. We live in an individualistic society where we care about me, myself, my family, and not many others. Recently, a few days ago, actually, last week I think, in our local Christian radio, I heard they were discussing this topic, and they were discussing this topic of whether or not if you have a family, meaning you are married and have children, you will still need friends in your life. They were discussing that on the radio. If you are married, happily married, and you have kids, lovely kids, and you are just content with your family, whether or not as Christian, you will still need friends in your life. So our society is struggling with this idea in this individualistic kind of culture. Because as Christians, we know we are not meant to live a solitary life. Right? I hope you get that. We're not meant to bury our faith and the love that God has for us, for ourselves. But we ought to be out there to share it. Yet we live in this society that say, well, as long as you're happy, you have a family, you don't need friends. You don't need friends. See, only in an individualistic society like ours, we would even bother to ask such a question, right? Do we really need friends? If we don't live in such a individualistic society, we won't be asking such question whether or not we need friends in our life. Of course we need friends in our life. We say to ourselves, I have my own family, my family's big enough, you know. We kind of self-sufficient, we encourage one another, we love one another, I don't need anyone else. You see, the normal pattern of a society is this. As soon as you got married, you will start losing your friends. Some of you are not married in this place. You say, no, that's not going to happen to me. Let me tell you. If you don't work hard at it, it will happen to you. Just with your parents, ask your parents. As soon as your parents got married, if you're not married, and if you're married, think about this. As soon as you got married, you have less friends. And you have even less friends as soon as you have kids. Because you have less time for others. Somehow you have less time for your friends. So you say, now I'm going to just spend my time with my husband, with my wife, and with my kids. And that's normal. That's a pattern of our society. The more things you have in your household, the less time you have for your friends. And you say this as well, if I have my own house, then I don't need anyone else or anything else. I'll just gonna stay in my comfortable house, right? So that's why this is again a normal pattern in our society is once you get married, once you have your own home, what do? You start making your home comfortable. You furnish your home to be as comfortable as possible in order that you do not need to go out as much. So that you can spend more time at home. And I'm not saying that that is not good. Of course that's good. That's a good thing to make your home comfortable, but not at the expense of then with this idea of then I've spent less time out there with my friends. Why do we do this? Why does our society does this? Because we say we are self-sufficient. I need to satisfy myself, and I can satisfy myself with my own abilities. You know, if I just have enough money to buy all the gadget and all the things, all the comfortable couch and the big TV or whatever to make our home comfortable, then I don't need to go out. I'm just gonna be sufficient and be satisfied. I won't need anyone else. See, some of us could be in danger at this moment, in danger of alienating our friends because we like our independence too much. Especially if you are introvert, you have the tendency that you might shut people in your life out of your life without realizing it. Because you like independence, you like privacy, you like comfort on your own or your own people, like your kids, your spouse. See, we strive in this life, we normally strive for wealth, or we strive for power, we strive for control. And by doing so, we have sacrificed our friendship along the way. So the older you get, the lesser friends you have. Tim Keller says this, I'm gonna read it to you, quote, no matter how many homes you have, no matter how big they are not the Garden of Eden. Even if you have the Garden of Eden, it won't be enough without friends. Do you hear that? We try to make our home as big and as comfortable. And Tim Keller said, what we are trying to do is we want to try to go back to Eden, to be as beautiful, as comfortable as possible. But then, even Eden will not satisfy without friends. So I'm sure, however furnished, however beautifully furnished our home is, it cannot compete with Eden. But even in Eden, we need friends. So that's the first thing. Why do we need friend? Why do we need a friend in our life to flourish? The second thing I want to talk about is, what is a friend? I hope you've convinced that we do need friends in our life to encourage us. We will face troubles in life, and we need a friend that we can call upon, like Jonathan for David. Second thing is, what is a friend? Well, there are many definitions. As I prepared this, there are many definitions, quite varied. What is a friend? However, for the sake of sticking to our passage today, 1 Samuel 18 to 20, I'm going to define what friend is based on this text, based on Jonathan and David's friendship. I'm going to sum it up in 3 words. So what is friendship in 3 words according to Jonathan, based on Jonathan and David's friendship? The 3 words are covenant, costly, and candid. Okay? What are friends? Friends can be described in 3 words: covenant, costly, and candid. Covenant. Covenant. A friend is someone who made a covenant with you. What is a covenant? Well, let me read to you chapter 18, 1 to 4. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, even his sword and his bow and his belt. So what is a covenant? So the first word, what is a friend? In 3 words, the first word is covenant. Covenant is like a contract, you see. It's like a contract, but unlike a business contract. It's like a contract, but not business contract. Covenant doesn't operate like business, doesn't operate like a business. See, in a business, you will transact, you will only make transaction, you only deal with someone with whomever that can benefit you the most. So that's business contract. Business contract is you will only transact with whomever that will benefit you the most. But covenant are not like that. See, some people make friends in this way. Not in a covenant way, but in a business contract way. They make a friend to whomever can benefit them the most. What can this person bring into my life? How can this person benefit my life, enrich my life? How can this person make my life better? See, when you think that way in making friendship, then you have operate in not in a covenant way like Jonathan and David, but in a business contract way. How can this person, if this person cannot benefit my life, I will not make friendship. And if you have to choose between person A and person B, then you think, well, person A gonna bring me this, person B gonna bring me this is better for me, I'm gonna go with him. Some of us make friends that way. See, one of the main features in a covenant friendship is faithfulness. In a business, you can throw faithfulness out of the door because as soon as it's not profitable anymore, you can change the contract. You can move on. You don't have to transact with that person or that business. But a covenant way of friendship is rooted in faithfulness. Like a marriage covenant, it's not about benefit. You see, in marriage, it's not about benefit. How can I benefit from this person? It's not. In a marriage covenant, it's about faithfulness, right? Sadly, our society has changed from that. From till death do us part, and they change it to till love fall apart. They put that clause in, instead of till death do us part. They say, well, for as long as there's love, yeah. It's no longer rooted in faithfulness, but in benefits. What is the return of investment that I can get? And I know a friend who's now divorced, but long before he was divorced, he said this to me. One day, his wife, one night, I don't know what, perhaps out of the blue, one time, this is long before they were divorced, the wife told him, you know, one day if you get really sick and can't do anything else, I will divorce you. That's what she said. That's business transaction, isn't it? That's not a covenant. But a friend, according to Jonathan and David, friendship is a covenant. It's not like I'll be friend with you, you'll be my friend for as long as you bring benefit into my life. So the main features of a covenant is faithfulness, like a marriage. You are not to quit just because it gets too hard. Because it gets too hard, it's no longer beneficial for you. And this is what Jonathan is offering David. Not just a business transaction or contract, but a covenant. So that's the first thing. What is a friend? Covenant. First C. Second C. What is a friend? Costly. Costly comes to mind. A friend is someone who does not think about his or her own profit. True friendship is costly. So if you think about your friendship that you have right now, are any of those costly to you? Think about your friendship right now. Think about your best friend. Are any of those friendships costly to you? Or is it costly to the other person? I hope we have one or two friends at least in our life that we say, well, this friendship is costly to me. Because that's what a true friendship is. It's costly to you. And what is the cost of Jonathan's friendship to David? Let's read in verse 4. We've read that, and let's read it again. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe. See, Jonathan is King Saul's son. He's next in line. He's the crown prince. And he stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David. And his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. The robe that he took off and gave to David signified kingship. By stripping off his robe and giving it to David and his sword and everything else, he basically handed over the throne, the crown prince, to David. It's costly to Jonathan. It's not just any friendship. He said, like, you have been anointed by God to be king. Yes, I'm in line. King Saul is my father. But here is my robe. It's costly to Jonathan. So not only true friendship requires faithfulness, true friendship is costly. Are any of your friendship at the moment costly to you? So as soon as Jonathan made a covenant to David, it cost him dearly. It's cost him his throne. Well, some of us are still thinking about what can we benefit from our friends. Jonathan relinquished his most valuable possession to his friend, David. So what is a friend? It's a covenant. It's costly. And the third one is candid. What is candid? Well, candid is, I want to say, a friend is truthful. That's what candid is. True. Not staged, not made up. So a friend is someone who is truthful, candid. In the age of social media, I'm sure you know what candid means. If you're a photographer, you would know what candid photos mean. You know what candid photos mean? Well, let me tell you. We live in a social media craze society, right? You haven't eat the food if you haven't photographed it and put it on Instagram. No proof, no deal, right? So you got to take picture and share it and tell the world about it. And same with your life. You almost have not experienced the beautiful bushwalking in a beautiful, serene morning between you and the environment that is so beautiful before you take a picture and share it with a hashtag beautiful morning walk. It's like you just ruined the moment. It's just a beautiful moment between you and the creation and the creator. 6 a.m. in the morning, walking, and yet you have to take your phone and take a picture and spend time editing it perhaps. That's the world that we're living in. That's the opposite of candid. See, even in our so-called candid photos, see, some of us have candid photos, right? Candid photos are, people say, when you don't look at the camera, pretending you're talking with one another. Even those candid photos are staged. They're like, take a candid photo of me, just pretend that I'm talking with this guy and take pictures of me. Even our candid photos are staged and not truthful. They're faked. See, do you notice on our social media, people are always beautiful, right? They're always beautiful. When they eat, they always look so, so joyful and so peaceful with that beautiful bite of a delicious meal. It's never like mess everywhere. And when they're on holiday, it's always on a beautiful destination, right? With their toes in the pictures and then the beautiful swimming pool or sceneries. You've seen those? Or when they're exercising in the gym. I've got a lot of those as well on my feed where, just morning exercise and the pictures of them pumping iron. It's like, that is so fake. That is so staged. Your friends on social media seems like always having nice food and nice meal while you're eating your kind of instant noodles at home. It's like you're browsing through your Instagram. It's like, man, look at those, right? And if they have family and kids, their family is always peaceful and beautiful. Their kids always well behaved. Have you seen your friends posting pictures of their kids in a mess? No. They're always beautiful and well behaved. They're always happy and they always look slim, right? Your friend always looks skinnier than you, always well dressed, better dressed than you. Those are the opposite of candid, not truthful. True friendship is candid. See, friendship today has become like social media. Friendship today has become like social media in a way that our friendship has been so staged and so heavily edited in our life. You don't see the true person anymore. In friendship, it's so superficial that you don't go beyond the surface anymore. You don't go deep enough anymore. And that is not what Jonathan and David friendship are like, you see. Their friendship was candid. In other words, their friendships were truthful and honest. Let me read to you from 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 39 and 42. I've warned you, I'm going to jump around because there are 3 chapters to cover. And Jonathan gave his weapons to his boy and said to him, go and carry them. All right, what I'm about to read here is the last words from Jonathan to David. After this, they're not going to meet one another again. And he said to him, not to his boy, not to David, go and carry them to the city. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another, this is David and Jonathan, and wept with one another. David weeping the most. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, because we have sworn, both of us, in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord shall be between me and you, between my offspring and your offspring. How long? Forever. And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. That's parting words between these 2 best friends. The Bible says these 2 grown-up men, they kissed, they hugged, and they wept with one another. That is truthful, that is honest friendship. So remember, I asked you to think about your friendship. When was the last time this happened? That you hug one another and you wept. So what does that mean? That means there's honesty in that friendship. They go beyond the surface. See, some of us, we don't even go beyond the surface with our spouse anymore. We're too busy with our own world that we don't go deep anymore. let alone with friends. Yet Jonathan and David kind of friendship is candid. They go deep. They go deep. We are lucky today. Why? Because we live in a society where men can cry. You know, once upon a time, if men cry, it's weakness. Men don't cry. Men don't share their feeling. But no, we're living in an age today. We're lucky in that sense that women look up to men who cry. They adore men who show vulnerabilities. So we are lucky in that sense. But if you do that for people praise, then you're being fake. You stage it again, right? You're not being candid. We're so closed up today, these days, with one another, that we are so afraid to open up with one another. Why we stage this? Why we are not candid with one another, with friends? Because we don't want to be vulnerables. As soon as you're being candid, being truthful, and as soon as you go deeper than just a surface kind of friendship, then you open up all sort of problems. You open up vulnerabilities. You almost inviting your friends to criticize you, to see all the flaws in your life. We don't like that, do we? But that's what Jonathan did to David. Not only that he gave his robe, what did he give him? His sword. Who in the right mind gives sword to the king, to your number one challenger? See, Jonathan is next in line, but Jonathan knows David has been anointed to be king. David is dangerous when it comes to kingship, to Jonathan kingship, yet Jonathan gave his sword. Jonathan basically says to David, I'm vulnerable before you. You can kill me now if you want. Today we are so closed up to one another, we don't want to be vulnerable to one another. We don't want to let people into our lives, right? You know? We don't want to let people into our lives. Many people were surprised today there's in my life I'm been sad to say that I've experienced friends who committed suicide in my life. And if you live in Australia, I'm not sure other part of the country, if you live in Australia, you would have friends who have killed themselves. It's so common. And how many of us were surprised when we heard that our friend has killed him or herself? And that is very common when in the newspaper, when they ask the friend, they say, I didn't know. She always seems so happy. She's the most cheerful person that I know. I didn't know that she's been suffering all this time. Because we are so closed up. We don't go beyond the surface. We don't go deeper anymore. See, a true friend lets you in. A true friend lets you in and share his or her vulnerabilities. You say, like, this is me. If you want to ridicule me, you can. If you want to attack me, you can. You know, you've seen all my flaws. So what is a friend? Friend made covenant. Friendship is costly. And true friend, is candid. It's truthful, not fake and staged. So that's the second thing. So the third thing and the final thing I'm going to talk about is then how we can be one. How to be a friend. How to be a Jonathan to our friends. Well, it's hard to be a friend like Jonathan. Can you imagine? If it is hard for our society today to make a covenant in marriage, let alone in friendship. Can you imagine that? If they cannot say to someone they're marrying, till death do us part, how can they say that to a friend? How can they make a covenant with a friend? It's hard. Well, let me correct myself. It's not hard to be like Jonathan. It's impossible to be like Jonathan in the society that we live in today. If you have one, if you are a Jonathan, to just like one person in your life, then you are a rare breed. So remember, I asked you about your friendship. So think about it. Are you a Jonathan to that friend? If you are, if you honestly truthful to yourself and say, yes, with this friend, I am a Jonathan to this person, then you are a rare breed. You are unique. You're special. Because it is impossible to be a friend like Jonathan in our age today. Faithful, like in a covenant relationship. Costly, not about what we can gain or what we can benefit, but about the good and the benefit of the other person. And candid, letting people in, showing them all our flaws and vulnerabilities. Who does that anymore? But if we want to flourish in this life, if we want to have a beautiful and fulfilling life in this, then we need friends. We need Jonathan, and we need to be Jonathan to someone. This means, what does it mean? Well, it means this, that you have to open up yourself. You have to be vulnerable. If you don't have any good friends, well, you have to find one first. And you have to be one. Let me ask this again. Do you have someone in your life whom you are like Jonathan to David? Whom you made a covenant with and gave the best of your robe? And who knows all your struggles and your flaws and your vulnerabilities? How to be a friend? Impossible. If that is our standard, it's impossible. If you can, if you have one, you're truly unique. You're truly unique. It's impossible. But yet, there's a chance for us to have a friend and to be a friend like Jonathan to David. How? In Jesus we can. In Christ Jesus our Lord we can. Let me share a little bit why. The Bible says this. Jesus came to restore the broken relationship. Remember the broken relationship that Adam broke in the Garden of Eden? Jesus came to restore that broken relationship. That's the reason he came. He came to restore the broken friendship between God and human, the creation, you and I. And Jesus came to restore that friendship that has been broken in the Garden of Eden. How did Jesus restore it? Jesus restore in three ways. First one, Jesus is committed to the covenant that he made. God made a covenant with with us, with you and me. And Jesus came to fulfill that covenant. He remained faithful. The Bible says, God, Jesus, remained faithful to the point even when we are not faithful. Even when we are not faithful to God, God said, I'll remain faithful to you. He's committed. He has a covenant with us. And the second thing, how Jesus did it, he paid the price. Not only he taken off his robe, he gave up his kingship. He took off his crown. He emptied himself, became like one of us. When he became one of us, he did not choose to be born as one of the nobles. He chose to be born among the poorest, to be one of us. He came down from heaven to be one of us. To be from a creator to be the creation, that's the most humbling thing you could do. The creator become the creation. Very costly. And the third thing that Jesus did for us is Jesus made himself vulnerable on the cross for you and I. There's no act of vulnerability that is more than what Jesus showed us. On the cross, not only he has his arms open wide, he has both his hands and arms nailed open for you and I. He said, this is me. Come on in. I let you into my life. Do you know how we can be a friend? If we have Christ in our life. If we experience the kind of friendship that Jesus offers us. Only those who have experienced this generous friendship from Christ the Creator, from God Himself, that we can be a Jonathan to our friend. Let's close our eyes and bow our heads.